The death of the local newspaper, I think, has destroyed Colorado and politics because, well, there's no place to go to get the information. Well, there's going to be a news source. Dan Njegomir, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me on.
You worked with the Gazette for many years as the editorial editor.
Yes, back in the old days.
Back in the old days when newspapers were on paper.
Right.
Yeah.
And they still are, but the product is put out a bit differently now.
How so?
Well, I mean, things are, of course, a lot more efficient, and a lot of the jobs that were in the newspaper business aren't there anymore.
Before we get to the new project, which is really pretty amazing,
yes,
I want to talk a little bit about what's happened with newspapers. Ever
Sure.
since the Rocky closed, the competition between the Post and the News, all of us consumers, particularly political news junkies, we've lost. There's fewer people covering the state house, there's fewer people covering local government, there's fewer people opining on issues that are not Washington. And when you think about it, the things that affect your life happen around you, not always in D.C.
Right.
And it breaks my heart when I think about how much the state has lost when it comes to local news.
Right, but of course, if misery loves company, Colorado's not alone. This has happened in state after state. And there's no doubt about it. As particularly state house coverage, you know, the legislature in each state, and this is absolutely true in Colorado, has taken a hit just with the evolution of the industry. Newspapers, TV, of course, is still there, but newspapers were often the sort of provided the bread and butter of news coverage of the capital.
TV news coverage might have given you a highlight here or there, and then they go to the gardening tips and sports and weather, because that's their bread and butter. But when it comes to what's going on politically that's going to affect your life, and those can be city councils, and that can be county commissions, and that certainly is the state government, there's not much there anymore. And I feel bad for guys in the media who are working today because, one, they're working with an axe over their head because they don't know when they're going to be laid off next, but they've got to produce so much that we're not getting the commentary, the analysis, and really the good reporting we used to.
I think these are all dynamics that are out there, and I can't obviously speak for other enterprises. I mean, I just rejoined the Gazette after many years of not working there. I worked there throughout the 90s and into the first part of this millennium, and then I went off and did a lot of other things in the world of advocacy up here in Denver. So I can't speak for the other enterprises. I know the Gazette is a very different place from the Gazette I left.
How so?
Well, it has different ownership, but the industry itself has had to change, and so to meet the changing times, to enter the digital age. And so the industry doesn't have a lot of, things have become a lot more, again, I'll use the word efficient, because you do have digital capabilities empower people more, and it makes them more productive, and fewer people can do more and varied things. And I think you're seeing that in the newspaper business as you are in industries of every kind. Again, I can't speak for other newspaper enterprises, but it's interesting to me how to see the new Gazette and how it functions, and some really smart, talented, and hardworking people there who are putting out a product in a different way than it was put out in the 90s.
I'd be remiss not to tell people that Phil Anschutz, who bought that paper, has invested, I think, pretty sizably in it, and taken what was a struggling paper and breathed new life into it. It actually has people there doing the job, and one of those new jobs is ColoradoPolitics.com, this new venture.
Right.
Explain it.
Well, ColoradoPolitics.com is I'll call it I mean, it's still sort of defining itself. We're sort of composing the symphony as we conduct it, I guess you could say. But let me first say what the vision for it is, and that's to become the one-stop news and analysis source for political news and analysis throughout the state, statewide. Yes, our parent is the Colorado Springs Gazette, or the Gazette located in Colorado Springs. But our own reach and our own vision is going to be statewide. It's going to be state politics, the legislature, and it's also going to be local politics around the state, you know, as warranted, where there are interesting stories that really need to be pursued. And we're just in the ramping up phase.
You know what
right
that
now.
takes, though? That takes reporters. The one thing that newspapers fail to have many of this time. So a lot of news sources can be, particularly opinion sources, can be one guy sitting at one desk putting out his opinion. That's not this, is it?
Right.
This is actual reporting.
Well, it is, and you know, yes, you're right. Of course, the digital age has democratized the media. Everybody can be his or her own reporter and editor and blogger and opinion writer and so on and so forth. That's a cool thing, and I think that's been really good for society. It's been good for the American political culture in a lot of ways. The flip side of which is, you're right. I mean, you still need resources to make it happen. You know, if somebody has to still go and be something else for a living as the proverbial day job, then it makes it kind of hard to pursue stories and be one's own journalist through the digital tools that are available to us all. So yes, it helps to have a major enterprise like the Gazette, which is now, of course, owned by Clarity Media, based up here in Denver, a Colorado company, to have the full faith and credit and the resources of an institution like that, and it's a long-standing institution, behind a new endeavor like this. I kind of see it as a spin-off or satellite operation of the Gazette. We want it very much to have its own distinct profile. It has its own domain. It has its own presence, and that's going to grow over time. I mean, we are obviously connected to the Gazette, and we answer to the chain of command and utilize their resources. And our managing editor is the managing editor of the Gazette. That's Jim Trotter, longtime news presence here in Colorado. And his boss, the editor-in-chief of the Gazette, is Vince Bizdek, and who just came on board last spring, but he goes all the way back in Colorado after having spent many years at the Washington Post.
So the obvious question's got to be, what's the difference between the Gazette and ColoradoPolitics.com?
I think we want us to have a more distinct profile in terms of outreach, so that people know us and know us as an entity that covers statewide news and provides statewide news coverage and analysis for political news. We've perceived there
in other words, this is not a Colorado Springs-centric news source. This is a Colorado-centric news source.
You say Colorado, I say Colorado. I'm just one of those.
Colorado?
Yes, it's a Colorado-wide endeavor, and it looks at political news and provides political news coverage and analysis statewide. And I think that's why also we wanted to have that separate and distinct profile.
There's also a difference when people put together online news who aren't reporters. It can be really good stuff, but as much as we make fun of reporters, and I love doing that, there is a trade. There is a skill set that is, here's how you do it to these specifications. I think it's called AP style, which is, in this situation, you need to get 2 sources. In this situation, you need to ask this question. In this situation, here's how you do it. No, you can't run that story until you fact-checked this, this, and this. And a lot of homemade digital news doesn't have that. It can be very sensational, but you need actual reporters to do the work.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm of two minds on that. On the one hand, again, especially in the digital age where you have, as I've referred to it, this democratization of news gathering, news flow, where anyone can do it. I think that's a good thing, and I think you and I have agreed over the years in our conversations about this topic that we don't like the elitism of old school journalism. But the flip side of it is, yes, the more you do it, let's put it that way, just like with any endeavor, golf or you know, anything else, the better you tend to get at it, and the more you polish techniques, the more you polish your skills. And that's what I like to think professional working journalists have, is polished skills in everything from the actual writing, the crafting of stories, to going after information, knowing where to get that information. And then with enough years and decades in the business, and I have decades in the business, you develop a sense of judgment about what is and isn't news, about when someone's not giving you everything they should give you, and about something that's really going to make a difference for people to know about.
A lot of that, though, requires people barking back at you. And the makeup of a newspaper is kind of interesting, at least the old school, which is you're not in an office with walls. You might be in a cubicle, but even the cubicles don't go up very high. And I think this is by design, because you're yelling back and forth at people or talking to other people who are doing it. As soon as you write something, you've got an editor who says, oh, this is crap and that's awful, and rewrite this. And even when you write it out, now that it's democratized, you get all sorts of nasty things back from emails, phone calls, and the rest. So unlike a guy who might be doing opinion, when you've done this for a while, you learn because you get a lot of feedback. Most of it not so pleasant.
Sure. Well, I thrive on not so pleasant, but that's just a personal predilection.
That's our friendship.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. But I didn't want to go there.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of newsies are that way. They're used to the adversity. You know, the old cliche, they thrive on adversity. I think that's one profession where they definitely do.
If this is successful and you're getting news from all over Colorado and you find that people are actually dialing into coloradopolitics.com and people in Larimer County tune in because there's a Larimer County story or a Colorado State story that they're not getting elsewhere, does it ever turn into something else? Does it ever turn into good old-fashioned newsprint, or is this something that stays online?
Oh,
what's the goal?
Our copy already runs fairly regularly in the Colorado Springs Gazette, so that's one outlet that will use us as a source. Yes, they own us, but it, as I said, there's this distinction, there's this separate profile. It's a separate pool of talent and skill that they're going to be
So they'll use you almost like an AP story.
Exactly.
It appeared at Colorado Politics.
Right.
But we're putting it in our paper today because it has some reference to the demographics that the Gazette uses.
Well, and I'm glad you raised the point, because I can assure you that as time goes by and as this thing develops and it evolves, we will be interested in developing relationships with other news outlets that would like to use our material as well.
Have you gotten a handle on your spelling problem?
I didn't know I had one.
I've read your stuff.
No, it's just my last name you stumble over.
That is a terrible last name.
Well,
yeah.
Tell that to my ancestors. Oh, you can't.
But I will soon. So, all right. People want to go see it. Where do they go? What is it? What can they expect?
Well, first of all, the URL is coloradopolitics.com.
There's no firewall here, is there? You don't need to pay $3 a month. Yeah, paywall.
Firewall, yes. We don't
firewall,
want
yes, but paywall.
Yes, there is no paywall, and you just come on board and read our stuff. Contact us, and there's going to be more falling into place. As I said at the outset, we're ramping up right now. So there's going to be 3 of us to start with, and there are only 2 of the 3 in the saddle at the moment. The 3rd one's coming on board in a couple weeks, all professional journalists with lengthy track records.
Dan, thank you. Thank you. Tell a friend. Listen for me on KHAL Radio, and we'll see you next week.